The call came at exactly 2:17 a.m., slicing through the silence, like something alive. I remember staring at the screen, watching the unknown number glow in the darkness of my room, feeling a strange hesitation I couldn't explain. Still, I answered. At first, there was nothing but a low, uneven breathing, the kind that makes your chest tighten without you realizing why. I whispered hello, my voice barely leaving my lips. The breathing stopped instantly. For a second, I thought the call had dropped, but then a voice, thin and distant, said, "You shouldn't be there." The line went dead. I sat there for a long time, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the emptiness. Then, from somewhere inside my house, I heard a soft creak. Not outside. Not the wind. Inside. I held my breath, every muscle locking up as the sound came again, slow and deliberate, like someone shifting their weight just beyond my door. My room was pitch black, the door slightly open, revealing only a narrow slice of deeper darkness beyond. I tried to tell myself it was the house settling, old wood adjusting to the night, but the thought didn't stick. Then I heard it again, the same breathing from the phone, now just outside my room. It grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was pressed right against the door. A whisper followed, so faint it barely existed. "I told you not to answer." I didn't sleep that night, and by morning, I had convinced myself it was stress, imagination, anything but real. But the next night at 2:17, the phone rang again, and this time I didn't answer. It didn't matter. The breathing came from the hallway anyway. The road was empty that night, stretching endlessly through a forest that swallowed all light beyond my headlights. I had driven that highway dozens of times, but something about it felt wrong from the moment I started. Maybe it was how quiet everything was, or how the darkness seemed thicker than usual. I noticed the car behind me after about 10 minutes. It wasn't unusual at first, just another set of headlights in the distance. But then I realized it wasn't getting closer or farther away. It stayed perfectly behind me, matching every change in speed. I tested it, slowing down slightly. The car slowed. I sped up. It sped up. A cold unease crept into my chest. I changed lanes. It followed. I took an unexpected exit. It followed again. The road I ended up on wasn't one I recognized, narrow and winding with no streetlights, just trees pressing in from both sides. My phone had no signal, just a blank icon where the bars should be. I glanced in the mirror again, and that's when the headlights behind me went out. The car was still there, I could feel it, but now it was invisible. Panic hit me hard and fast. I slammed on the brakes, tires screeching against the pavement. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then came the impact, violent and sudden, jerking my body forward. I stumbled out of the car, heart racing, expecting to see another driver, someone to explain what just happened. But the car behind me was empty. The engine was off. The doors were closed. No one was there. I stood frozen, trying to understand, when I heard something moving in the trees. Footsteps, heavy and slow, circling closer. I didn't wait. I ran without looking back, branches tearing at my clothes, my breath coming in sharp bursts. I don't know how long I ran, but when I finally stopped, the forest was gone. I was standing on a different road entirely, one I didn't recognize, and my car was nowhere in sight, like it had never existed. The apartment above mine was always quiet during the day, but at night, it came alive with a sound I couldn't ignore. It started as a faint dragging noise, something heavy scraping across the floor. At first, I brushed it off as furniture being moved, but it happened every single night, always around the same time, always for hours. Eventually, it started to feel intentional, like whatever was making that noise wanted to be heard. One night, I decided to confront it. I went upstairs and knocked on the door. The dragging stopped immediately. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. I knocked again, louder this time. After a long pause, the door opened just a crack. I couldn't see inside, only darkness pressing against the frame. A voice asked, "What do you want?" It sounded flat, almost rehearsed. I explained about the noise, trying to keep my tone calm, but the moment I finished, the voice responded, "I don't make noise at night." The door shut before I could say anything else. That should have been the end of it, but that night, the dragging came back, louder than before, directly above my bedroom. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to ignore it until it stopped suddenly. Then came a single heavy thud, right above me, followed by a slow, deliberate knock. I froze. Another knock came, then another, each one spaced out, intentional. My heart pounded in my ears as I stared upward. Then a voice whispered, not from above but from somewhere inside my room, "He isn't up there anymore." I didn't dare look around. I installed the camera because I thought something was coming into my backyard at night. The sounds were subtle but consistent. Footsteps, soft tapping, sometimes what sounded like faint laughter. The first few nights, the camera recorded nothing unusual. Just empty darkness and the occasional movement of trees in the wind. On the fourth night, something changed. At exactly 3:03 a.m., a figure appeared at the edge of the frame. It stood completely still, tall and thin, its shape barely visible against the darkness. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to make out details, but the image was too grainy. Then the figure moved, slowly raising its arm and pointing directly at the camera. A chill ran through me as I realized it wasn't just random movement. It knew it was being watched. I rewound the footage, watching again, and that's when I noticed something else. Another figure closer to the house, standing right outside the back door. Completely still. I checked the timestamp again, my stomach dropping. That was the exact moment I had woken up during the night, feeling like something was wrong. I didn't want to believe it, but the next morning, I went outside and found footprints leading from the yard straight to the back door. They stopped there, as if whoever made them had. Simply walked inside and vanished. The mirror had been in the house long before I moved in, tall and slightly warped, leaning against the hallway wall. I didn't think much of it until I started noticing small inconsistencies. At night, my reflections seemed delayed, moving just a fraction of a second after I did. It was subtle, easy to dismiss, but once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. One night, I stood in front of it, staring directly at my reflection, trying to prove to myself that it was normal. Everything matched perfectly. Every movement, every blink. Then I blinked again, and my reflection didn't. It just stood there, eyes wide open, staring back at me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. I stumbled back, breaking eye contact, and when I looked again, everything was normal. I avoided the mirror after that, taking longer routes through the house just to stay away from it. But one evening, distracted and tired, I walked past it without thinking. I caught a glimpse of the reflection and stopped. The hallway was there. The walls, the door, everything in perfect detail. Except me. I wasn't in the mirror at all. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the empty space where I should have been. Then, slowly, a figure appeared in the reflection, standing exactly where I was. It wasn't moving. It was just there watching. I turned around, heart pounding, but there was nothing behind me. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure was gone, and my reflection had returned, as if nothing had happened. The hospital was quiet during the night shift, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than silence. My friend told me about a patient who had been brought in without any identification, found wandering alone and barely conscious. They placed him in a room at the end of the hallway, far from the other patients. At first, everything seemed routine, but then the security cameras started malfunctioning. The feed for that hallway would flicker and distort, sometimes cutting out completely. One of the nurses noticed something strange in the footage. The patient was standing outside his room, completely still, facing the camera. When they went to check, he was back in his bed, asleep. They reviewed the footage again, and this time it was worse. The patient was still standing in the hallway, but now there was also a version of him lying in the bed at the same time. Both were motionless. Both were staring directly into the camera. No one could explain it, and the footage was eventually deleted, but my friend swore that before it was erased, the standing figure moved slightly closer to the camera, as if it had noticed them watching. I found the phone in a hotel drawer, tucked beneath a stack of brochures as if someone had tried to hide it. It was old, scratched, and definitely not mine. Curiosity got the better of me, and I turned it on. It powered up instantly, no password, no lock screen, just a messaging app already open. There was only one conversation, and it was labeled me. I frowned, opening it, and my confusion quickly turned into something colder. The messages were recent, sent just minutes before I found the phone. They described everything I was doing in real time, down to the smallest details. I dropped the phone, my heart racing, and that's when I felt it. A presence behind me, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth of breath against my neck. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The phone buzzed on the floor, another message appearing. I didn't need to read it to know what it said. The elevator ride should have taken less than a minute. I stepped in, pressed the button for my floor, and leaned back as the door slid shut. At first, everything felt normal, the familiar hum of the cables, the slight shift as it began to rise. Then it stopped abruptly, the lights flickering overhead. The display above the door changed, the numbers disappearing and being replaced by a single word, down. A moment later, the elevator began moving again, but this time it was descending. That